Hello everyone and welcome to the Den. And as you know by the title, today we're canning chili. So if you want to see how I can my chili, then stick around. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna be canning chili, and I'm doing chili with meat and beans. So the recipe that I am going to be using, there will be some, as always, I'm gonna change things up just a little bit. But it's gonna come from this book here, and this is my USDA Guide to Home Canning. I will link this recipe book down below. I will also link the Ball Blue book, Guide to Preserving recipe book. It has a recipe in it with no beans, if you are more interested in something like that. But we're going to follow this one today. Like I said, there will be some minute changes, but like always, I can in a certain way that I want it to taste how I want it to taste. So what my family will eat, what I like. So that's why I do make little bits of variations. As long as you're staying within, you know, your safe canning and not, you know, going off the rails, then it's gonna be fine. So most of it's gonna be pretty true to this recipe, as well as most of the ingredients in here are going to be exactly what I'm going to be using. The process that I'm going to take with this canning is going to be very similar to my 15 bean soup, where I put the beans in last and I got the broth and all the other parts good and flavorful before I added the beans, because I just wanted to make sure that, you know, if you let those beans cook in this water, then, you know, they can split, become mushy or whatever, and I don't want that to happen. So I will make this chili without the beans, and then I'll make sure that it all tastes really good. I'll probably let it cook, you know, for half an hour or so and let the flavors kind of blend together, and then I'll add my beans, and then we will jar it up after that. But right now I did dried beans. I did 2 pounds of kidney beans and 2 pounds of pinto beans, and I'm hoping to get 20 regular mouth pints out of it, because, like, you know, if you watch my other videos, I like to do a full canner, and pints just give me more options for lunch and dinner. And we're coming into fall now, so I want to have these kind of like soup like jars on the shelf. So that's why I'm stocking up and beefing up my lunch and soups, so that we have lots of variety going into fall and winter. So if you haven't watched that 15 bean soup and that sounds like something that you would be interested in, I'll link that one up above here. And that one turned out excellent. We did try one, and it was really, I mean, every time that I make 15 bean soup, it's really good, but it didn't disappoint. So let's get started with this. The first thing that I'm going to do, I've already soaked my beans overnight, and I've already, when you go to soak your beans, you know, you're just gonna rinse them off, make sure there's no stones or debris in them from the field, and it could have got left in packaging. Give them a rinse, and then fill the bucket with at least twice as much water as the bean level. I like to do as much as I possibly can. And then today, after they've soaked, I rinsed them. They're just waiting for me to put them in the pot. But the first thing that I'm gonna do after that is I have 4 onions here, and I'm going to get these on the stove. I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil, just a small amount, in the bottom here so that these onions don't stick. And then we will add some seasoning and the meat. So let's get started. Okay, so I just have my onions going here. And I'm just gonna let these cook a little while, about medium, a little past medium heat towards high. And you're just gonna let them cook down some. I put about maybe 2 teaspoons of olive oil in here. Just enough that they don't stick before they start to sweat a little. And I'm just gonna let these do their thing until they become softer. And then I'll add a little garlic, and then we will I'll take these onions out and I'll brown my meat, drain off the fat, and then we'll mix it all together. Okay, so this has sweat down a little bit here, and I added about 3 good-sized teaspoons of minced garlic. You can use fresh. I'm just gonna let that heat up with this. That together, I'm gonna mix that together and let this come together for just a couple minutes. And then I'm actually gonna take the onions out so that I can get a good drain of the fat off of that hamburger meat when I do that. And I'm gonna add 3 pounds of hamburger meat in here. So we're at 4 large onions, 3 heaping teaspoons of garlic, and I'm about to do the 3 pounds of hamburger. Alright, so I have my 3 pounds of hamburger in here. I took my onions out. Sometimes when you cook this much hamburger, getting it drained off in the colander afterwards can be tough, but if I was just making a small batch of chili for dinner, I would just mix all this stuff together, but it's going to be hard to get all this drained off. Cumbersome. So I'm just going to brown this meat, and once that's done browning, then we will start putting all the ingredients in the pot. Okay, so I've fully browned my meat. I just cooked it all the way through because it's going to cook through anyways, and I added back my onions and garlic, and now I'm going to start adding in all of the rest except for the beans. So I'm going to do 4 cans of diced tomatoes. They're the 14.5 ounce. We'll see how much that gets us. Whenever I make this, I kind of just wing it until it's right. Okay, and the next thing I'm gonna add is, this is where you can change this up, this recipe. I'm gonna use green chilies. You can use any kind of pepper you want. You can use green peppers, you can use serranos, jalapenos, whatever pepper you would normally put in your chili. That's what you would add in now. If you were going to be using fresh green pepper, you'd wanna probably cook those when you're cooking your onion. But these are canned green chilies. And I'm using 2 of the 7-ounce cans. Okay, the next thing I'm going to add, which the recipe doesn't call for, but I'm going to put it in, is chicken stock. The recipe just calls for water, but I'm going to use chicken stock. And this chicken stock is my home canned chicken stock, which I have a video for, if you're interested in that. So I'm going to give that a stir. Now I'm going to add in my chili powder. That's at least 2 tablespoons of chili powder. And this is something that that's why I like to do this first, because I like to taste it and make sure it's good. So right now, I am just going to be adding my seasonings. And it'll probably need a little salt. You can add black pepper to this, or any other seasonings that you like. I'm probably going to need more chicken stock. Okay, so I added in 2 more pints of chicken stock, and I'm going to add in a little cumin. About probably a teaspoon and a half of cumin. And I'm gonna stir this, and what I do at this point is I just keep tasting it until it tastes like my chili. I don't have a written recipe for this. It is very similar to the recipe in the canning book. I'm just adding different spices. So, and I chose green chilies for my peppers. So I'm just gonna let this, I still haven't added my beans at this point. I'm just letting this broth and the meat and the onions and all the other ingredients, and just letting them kind of mix together so that I'll know what it tastes like. Because once it's canned up, you know, you're kind of committed to that, especially for chili. So as this comes to a simmer, I will keep tasting, but that's where we're at right now. And as soon as it tastes good, I'm gonna add the beans. We'll cook them I'll let it kind of come up to heat for about 10 minutes, and then we'll start jarring up. All right, so they taste good now. This tastes good now. I added a little more cumin. I added a little bit more chili powder. And like I said, I just taste along the way until it tastes good to me. So if you're looking at the actual recipe for this, the amounts might be different, but this is really liquidy right now. This is a 20-quart pot. You can see here it's really liquidy, but I haven't added any of the beans yet. And I may only add 1 pound of beans, 1 pound of kidney, 1 pound of pinto. I need to be at about halfway up this pot, and I'm pretty close right now to get my 20 pints out of here. So I'm gonna add the beans, and I'll tell you how much I added. But let me get those in there right now, and then I'll bring you back. All right, so I added my beans in, and I used about half of the beans because it would have just been way too much. So go with 1 pound of pinto and 1 pound of kidney beans. When I make this, when I'm not canning it, I use beans that I already have, that I've already canned, my home canned beans. But because I'm gonna put this through the pressure canner, I want them to be dried beans so that they don't just become complete mush. So that's why I do it like that, and that's why you probably should do it like that when you're canning beans. So this looks good, and all I'm gonna do now, it says that you should let your beans boil for 30 minutes in the canning book, but I'm gonna do 20 minutes because 30 minutes is really not necessary in my opinion. But if you want to follow that the canning recipe, go with 30 minutes. They kind of do their recipe a little bit backwards, where I do the boil when everything is all together, and they do a boil just of the beans. But I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you. So I'm gonna let this boil for about 20 minutes where it's coming up to a boil now, and then that'll be it for this part. And then after this, we can get them jarred up. Okay, so my chili's all done, and we're going to move on to jarring now. Whenever I clean my jars, I just put them in my rinse sink filled with hot soapy water, and I let them soak for a little while, and then I just rinse them and I put them on the towel. I don't keep them hot or anything like that. And so I have 20 pints sitting over there. I do think that we'll be close to 20 pints here. So I'm gonna grab my jars, and we're gonna start jarring this up. And I do the same thing with the lids and the bands. I just put them in the hot soapy water too, and I just set them on the towel to dry. So let's grab some jars and start jarring this up. All right, so go ahead and grab your jars, your funnel, and get a big ladle if you have one so that you can start jarring your chili up. And I'm going to do our liquid headspace line right now too. So I'm gonna fill the solids to about the neck, where it starts to become the neck there. And then I'm gonna top it off with liquid. You're gonna get close to a 1-inch headspace. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna do a debubble and a headspace check at the end. But that's what that's gonna look like. So here's my first jar. Looks good. You can see it there. So I'm gonna jar up the rest of my jars, and then I will come back when it's time to wipe the rims and put lids and bands on. Okay, so I'm all done jarring up. I got 18 pints out of that, which is good. I'd rather do 20, but that's okay. I'd rather fill up 18 pints and not have any left over, because I didn't plan on eating this for dinner tonight. So I got 18 pints out of that, and this is about what's left, just some juice. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is, I have everything jarred up now. We are going to get our debubbler tool, and it's also our headspace checker. It's a good word for that. But we are going to go ahead and debubble, check headspace. We're going for a 1-inch headspace. So let me show you how to do that. To just grab a jar and go through down each side. This has a lot of liquid, so there shouldn't be too much air bubbles, but you just want to make sure that there's no air bubbles. And then you take the other side of your tool and set it at the 1-inch notch and make sure that your headspace looks good. So my headspace is good, so I'm gonna do that with all my jars, and then we'll come back and we'll clean our rims. So all of my jars now have been debubbled. I've also adjusted headspace as needed. That's always make sure to keep your broth if you have leftovers. If you think that you're gonna get to a point where you're not gonna have enough left and you just need like a tablespoon or so of liquid to fill up, it's all right just to add a little water. Sometimes I do that, but I had some broth left over, so I only needed to adjust a few of them. So I have 1-inch headspace on all of them, but now it's time to clean the rims of my jar. So I'm gonna grab a clean paper towel and some vinegar. Okay, so you're just gonna grab that paper towel with vinegar, and I have some right here, and you're just gonna go around the rim, and at the same time you're checking for any nicks or cuts that you might have missed when you were washing them. Make sure you don't have any nicks or cuts or anything like that. You wanna get a nice good seal. Sometimes even I've had jars that have had like a blemish from the factory, like just maybe it was like an air pocket or something. So just making sure of all that, because the jars can look great, but any little nick in that top rim could cause or would cause these jars not to have a hermetic seal. So you want to make sure you got a good clean surface for that lid to sit on with no fat. And because there is meat and the meat is ground beef, there is going to be a fat content even though we drained the meat off. Plus just the chili itself, the juice can be sticky. So just making sure we're getting those nice and clean. Okay, so all my lids look pretty clean now, so all my rims look clean. So I'm gonna grab lids and we're gonna start getting the lids and the bands on. All right, so let's go ahead and get our lids on. Okay, so our lids are on, let's get our bands. So I'll start with one band. I'm just going to show you how to do that. And you're just going to put the band on and it's finger tight. You can get it on there. And then just like it sounds, use only your fingers. You don't have to use any extra strength than that. Go ahead and get all the rest of your bands on. So if you're enjoying this video today, I would ask that you guys think about liking this video and also subscribing. It helps my channel grow. I had really good growth for a while, and then all of a sudden everything's just kind of dropped off. So if you appreciate these videos, it would be awesome if you went ahead and subscribed. It makes me feel like what I'm doing is worth it and worth my time and effort. So like I say, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and also hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell too and select all, so anytime that I drop a new video, you're the first to know. Alright, so we're going to start loading up this canner right now. This is a 23 quart Presto canner. I will link it below in my description, so you can get a link to the same one as this one. I do believe they also have an induction canner like this, so if you had a flat top stove, I do believe that there is a Presto canner that's just like mine that is made for induction safe, and I can link that one too. But this is just a regular 23 quart Presto pressure canner. We're gonna start loading this up. I have it at about medium heat right now, and it's just about at kind of a simmer. It's just steaming right now, and that's perfect. I have my second rack right here that we are going to put in between. And I will also link this on Amazon as well, because your canner will not come with a second rack. At least mine didn't. It only came with one. You don't absolutely have to have a second rack, but if you didn't have a rack, you'd want to stagger your jars. I just feel safer having 2 racks in mine. So that's why I have this, and like I said, I'll link that down below as well. So let's get this loaded up. I'm going to do 9 on the top and 9 on the bottom. All right, so our canner is loaded up. So now you want to grab your lid. Make sure that you can see through your vent pipe if you have this style of canner. Well, any canner really. Don't want any clogging in this vent pipe. Always make sure that you can move this freely too. Sometimes mine gets stuck and that stinks. Just turn it. And now it's seated into place. I'm gonna turn it this way a little. So all we're doing now, I'm not gonna touch my heat. I'm gonna leave it at about medium or a little more than medium. And I'm just gonna wait for this to come to a vent. And when it gets to a vent, I'll bring it back. I'll let you see what that looks like. Okay, so we're at a vent now, and a steady flow of steam is coming out of this, even if you can't see it that well. It is. And I'm gonna set my timer for 10 minutes, which I've already done. And then when that 10-minute timer runs out, you're gonna put your vent, you're gonna put your weight on top of the vent pipe. And so right now what we're doing is we're just replacing the air inside the canner with steam. The combination of the steam and the pressure will get those foods to that temperature they need to be at to kill any bad stuff that's in there. So, that could be in there. So as soon as we get to that 10-minute timer and it's all run out and the timer goes off, then I'm going to put my weight over it. And at that point, I'm going to be waiting for this gauge to come up to 13, because 13 is the pressure point that I need to be at for my elevation. Check your, know your elevation and check what your pressure point needs to be for your elevation. But mine is 13, so, and as soon as you put this little thing up, this other valve too will pop up as well, and that's what's going to help build that pressure. So, right now, 10-minute timer is going, and once that 10 minutes is up, cap it, wait for it to come to your pressure, and then once it gets to that pressure, whatever your pressure is supposed to be, then you can start your timer for processing. Now these are pints, so they're going to be 75 minutes, but I cannot start that timer until my canner builds the pressure. Okay, so that's the next steps, and then you're going to let that timer run out for 75 minutes, you're going to let it process. During that time, you're keeping it around. See, mine will be my pressure is 13, so mine usually sticks at about 15. So it's okay to go over. Do not let your pressure go underneath any time during the processing, because if it for some reason were to go underneath 13 for me, I would have to get it back up to pressure and then restart my timer over again. I do not want to do that, so I will keep a close eye on this canner the entire time that it's processing. And the pressures will fluctuate. They tend to go a little bit up, and then you may have to adjust your heat down a little bit. If you're going to need to adjust your heat, just do it in small amounts. Don't do anything drastic. Don't go from medium to low. Don't do that. Just turn it down gradually, and the pressure will come down. So that's all we're doing right now. And then as soon as this whole event is done, I'll bring you back and we'll see what they look like when they're done. Alright, so our processing time has expired. The 75-minute countdown is all done. The pressure has dropped down to 0 here, you can see on the gauge here. And my other valve here has also fallen down, so that's a good sign that your pressure is all dropped down. So you want to remove this and make sure no steam comes out, and none did. So now you know it's okay to go ahead and open your lid. And just move it off quick because it's still hot. So they look good, they're still bubbling. I'm gonna let them sit in there a little while longer. I'm gonna pull one just out slightly so you can see what it looks like. And there it is. But I'm gonna just put it back in there and let it kind of settle on its own, because they are really still bubbling a lot. So that's it for those. They look great. So once we get them over to the counter, then the only thing that I'll do with them tomorrow is I'll let them sit on the counter on a towel overnight, and then tomorrow morning I will give them a wash, remove the bands, mark them with the date and the contents inside, and I'll put them away in my pantry. Alright, so that's going to do it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Maybe you'll give it a try, and some of my other recipes too. Again, if you guys wouldn't mind subscribing, that would help out the channel a lot. And I'm not sure what's coming up next, but I'll think of something, and I'll see you in the next video.